be the place to be to develop your skills and grow your potential. So what I wanted to remind you today is to check my on-demand services. I'm offering a lot of services around email, around Skype sessions. So you have a career issue or question, you send an email over contact@pleiad.hc. I check to see, how much time I need to answer your questions or queries, and I'll give you a budget. So it's quite easy as a process. Feel free to send me your message. So that's to get started. Now this video today is a follow-up of last week's video for EU professionals looking for a job. I don't have one specific request, but many requests actually. A lot of people outside of EU are saying, well, how can I find a job in Switzerland? How can I work there? So today's video is basically for these people who are asking me what are some of the options to give you four paths or four ways to find a job in Switzerland. So the first one is really to decide whether you're a humanitarian or diplomatic type of profile. So look at your experiences. Are you someone who has worked for not-for-profit? So that would make your resume a good match for a UN organization. I have a listings of organizations that hire globally. Again, it's in the not-for-profit world because they need to be able to hire globally. It's usually the bigger ones, so there's CERN, also scientific research, they can also hire globally. So check that with me, send me an email if you want to know either if your profile would fit in that category, or if you want to know what are the organizations that hire globally. Again, there's only a handful, not many, and it's for those kinds of professions. We call it development, humanitarian, etc., etc. So that's the number one. The second way to work in Switzerland is to start your own business. But as you can imagine, that's quite difficult. You need resources in every possible way. You can't really start a business in Switzerland if you don't know many people, if you don't know how to get set up. Of course, you will need to pay for your living in Switzerland, which is quite expensive, and also pay for your business. Any business owner knows that there's a lot of expenses. Especially if you start hiring people, then it's also expenses. Marketing will cost you anything like that. So starting a business, and I say this in all my communications, in my ebook and in videos where I talk about starting a business, you need to have resources. So I know a lot of communications now say you can start, from scratch. Yes, it's true, but you can start from scratch, but also depending on where you live. So if you live in the basement of your parents' house and you're 19 years old, yeah, probably you can start a business online with not much resources. But if you're a professional, you have already a house mortgage and fees to pay every month, basically responsibilities towards family, etc. You can't just go and start a business easy like that. So especially in a country where the cost of living is quite high. So really you need to assess how much you can start a business. Do you have an idea that's sustainable? The Swiss will want to know, is it a plan that you have? Do you want to hire people in Switzerland? That's all those things they will ask to know if you're someone serious that wants to develop a serious business in Switzerland. So that's number two. Number three is consulting. So if you're in a profession where you can do consulting, it's easy for you to go and consult with Swiss companies. But those last two options I'm giving you are a little bit outside the box. So basically there's only two ways I just explained, UN or start a business. So the other two are more, maybes, but it's going to be very slim. So it's consulting, but that's not helping you get into Switzerland because you're still an outsourced maybe provider where you work with Switzerland, but you're still sitting outside of Switzerland. So if the dream is the Swiss mountains and the chalet, then maybe that's not it. And the last one is the company transfer. So if you're working for a multinational and you have potential to work via your company, that's probably the easiest, straightforward way to come and work in Switzerland because your company will support you to get the paperwork and get you in. But again, that means that you would have to work for a multinational and they would have to have an office. That's a lot of criteria. So now if you're not really fitting in any of those things and you're saying, I'm just someone who's working and who just wants to apply in companies in Switzerland, it's not going to happen. So I'd rather be clear on that. It's not going to happen. And I'll give you the reason why. So the reason why is this. The demand is just not there for most jobs. There's already enough people to pick from locally. A lot of people who have work permits or who are from EU nationalities. There's enough. I mean, that's the reason why the Swiss are saying, we need to watch also the massive immigration votation happen, because again, there's some concern about sustaining the growth and having enough resources again locally. So you want to protect in a way your country, which is Switzerland is also watching the growth, and making sure that everyone can be integrated properly. So basically, companies have enough to pick from. They already have enough people that they can choose. Now that said, the best thing, depending on what you do as a professional, what is your field, now high tech is quite big, fintech and all that. So if you're more on the tech end, I think you have a bit more opportunities to work in Switzerland. Maybe you come and meet, the CEO or the founder of a company in a conference, and you end up, getting along great, and they need a co-founder or someone to help them develop a business. So you're fitting back into my option too. Maybe you work on a business with somebody, or you meet a company that really needs your skill and they're willing to go through the hoops. So again, if a company wants to hire you, they will have to spend a lot of money to get your permit processed. So that's why I'm saying the chances are extremely slim, because for the company to invest this much in a resource, it's, and again, most of the time, sometimes people don't stay in the company. So you already have a cost anyways when you hire someone. So if you hire someone from non-EU, between the time to get the permit through, you're not having the person work, the money you have to pay maybe to get someone to help you get the permit, it's just making it very, very painful for the company. So that's why you're not getting any replies on your application. It's just not an easy thing. I mean, it's a little bit like, think about it like dating overseas. If you have someone you want to date that's in another country, yeah, even if the intention is there, you're thinking immediately, the logic kicks in, what is the potential of a good working relationship? So it's the same with a company. Why bother with people that are way, way out there? It's just more difficult to know if the person is sustainable, if it's a good decision. You can't really meet easily. You would have to bring the person over. I mean, I know Skype helps, but in the end, it's just not easy and sustainable for the person or for the company. So that's why you're not getting any callback or any interest from companies. It's not that they don't want to, it's just not very sustainable. It's not easy. It's not made easy with the process, the way it is built right now, and the time it would take to get the request through, and the cost, etc. So don't look at it as, I'm not wanted, I'm not good enough, all these things. It's just not sustainable. It's not economically sustainable. It's not a question of liking or not liking your resume. It's a very easy thing, too costly, too worryful, too much hurdle to get a permit, not worth it, just easy thing. So they will prioritize always locals, in this stage. So remember what I said, the 4 options. So work for the UN if you can, start a company if you can. Then consulting will not get you anywhere to Switzerland, or not easily. And finally, get a company transfer if you can, same thing. So that's the only 4 options that you have. There's not other ones that I know of. And I'll keep repeating these 4 options because people are asking a lot about what are my chances, but I think they're looking at it from getting hired by a company. This is basically, my answer is 0 chance. So I just want to make that clear. If you don't have a UN profile, if you don't have money to start a business in Switzerland, maybe you can consult from far away, but you're not going to be picked up. Your resume is not going to be picked up in an inbox. So think about your project. Think about how much money, energy, time you have to sell your case to a Swiss company. That means you would have to come here and spend quite some time. In my view, again, not sustainable. So I hope this was helpful. Feel free to comment below and give me your questions via email. Thanks.